In-laws manipulate daughter for money. My fiancé and I manage our finances well for us being in our 20s. Between the two of us, we bring in a six-figure household income. I own a small business that is doing well, and my fiancé is still in university and works part-time. Prior to our engagement, my future father-in-law requested a loan from me, since I make significantly more than my fiancé. Future father-in-law wanted to buy a used van, but had really poor credit. I said yes because I wanted to be nice, but I knew when I agreed that I might never get my money back. I was just, hopeful and optimistic. My optimism was quickly cut short because I didn't receive a single check. I thought it would be far simpler to just let the money go because I didn't want to cause any issues with future father-in-law. But now I have a reason to not let him borrow money again in the future. Unfortunately, life continues. All is good. Then, future father-in-law sends me a text asking for more money, a lot more money. I politely say no, giving him all the reasons I would be uncomfortable doing that. He interjects, "We need this money." Future father-in-law explains that future mother-in-law thinks that she needs therapy because she has been feeling consistently upset about work, and he is afraid that she might be depressed. So, they decided that it was right for her to quit her job, but now they are unable to afford basic necessities. I felt conflicted, but I still politely refused and asked future father-in-law to please try to use all other options first. Future mother-in-law immediately calls me, and starts explaining the exact same situation that future father-in-law texted, and I snap. Please just no, try other things first, please. A week after this conversation, my fiancé and I were having dinner, and she started crying. I calmed her down, and she explained that she was upset because she would no longer be able to study abroad next semester. This is a necessary part of her degree completion, and she was really looking forward to it. Apparently, future mother-in-law convinced her to wipe out all she saved up to pay for studying abroad, and just like with the van, they promised to pay her back in payments, then didn't give her a single payment. I got so frustrated, but calmed down enough to maintain a clear head for a phone call with future father-in-law. I was very frank with him. I told him to either start payments to their daughter for the money that they owe her within 3 weeks' time, or we will settle the matter of the money he owes me for the van through legal process. I did not call them any names, but I may have insulted them with my tone. Did I do the wrong thing? I can pay for my fiancé's study abroad program, but I just feel angry that they stole from their own daughter. Mother-in-law intrudes during my delivery. When I was pregnant with my daughter, my mother-in-law asked if she could be in the delivery room. I told her firmly that no, she could not be there, and only my husband would be in the delivery room with me. I made it clear that I would be more comfortable if she waited until we were home from the hospital to visit. Well, once I was in labor, she told my husband she was on the way. She lives a state away. By the time she let us know she was headed to the hospital, she was well on her way, so I didn't want to be a swine and tell her to turn around and go home. This is my first baby and I was in labor for over 36 hours. When she got there, she totally took my husband's attention away from me. I've never demanded his full attention, but I do feel that if I'm in the hospital in labor, I'm entitled to undivided attention from him. She made him go with her to the car multiple times, show her where things are in the hospital, and even to leave me at the hospital complaining cause she needed him to set up her sleeping arrangements at our house. I ended up needing an emergency C-section. After the baby was born, she would pop in at the most inconvenient times. I'm talking like when the nurses are checking me, and whatnot. One time she left and I texted her that we were all exhausted, and since the baby was napping we were going to take a nap too. She showed up 10 minutes later. Well, so much for our nap, right? She would be there for hours, and hours, and hours talking non-stop, asking me a million questions when I was trying to rest, like hello, I just had a baby cut out of me. Let me rest. The nurses noticed that my blood pressure was high, so I told them to test me again when she was gone. They tested me after she left and I was fine. Every time she was there, my blood pressure skyrocketed. She even asked my doctor about my medical information. My husband and I are planning on another baby and I outright told him that his mom is not allowed to visit until after we come home from the hospital, and this time I am not budging on that. I will have her escorted from the hospital if I have to. My question is, am I overreacting? Was it the hormones? Which I doubt because I feel the same way about it now. Mother-in-law is way too messy, so we've been living with my mother-in-law for a few years. It's hard to find a place we can afford right now, but we're working on it. Anyway, my husband has never gotten along with her, and actually went 3 years without speaking to her in the same house. I initially thought he was overreacting. She is a nice person, gives wholeheartedly, and is a great grandmother, or so I thought. 2 years ago I had my third child, and for some reason the house started falling apart. She would make tea, and leave her cups on the couch or on the fireplace, and they would get mold in them. She doesn't take out her own trash from her room, opens cabinet, and doesn't close them, uses sauces and spices, and doesn't put them back. Her car is extremely filthy. When she needs all the seats, she brings her trash from her car to the hall of the house, and leaves it there. So now the hall is crowded with her car junk. When she does finally do the dishes, it's half-assed, just a few plates, and nothing else, not even cleaning the tables or spoons or other utensils. There are no plates or bowls because they are in her room, which when she does bring them out they have mold. A few times she's even spit in said dishes and, well, let's just say it's not fun to clean these out. I know, I should just leave these, but no one else will clean them. And I know we should just leave, and we want to, and we are working on it, as I've said before. Because of this, and this is only scratching the surface, we had a blowout. I regret some of the things I've said, but I don't regret telling her she is filthy. It's not only the filth, it's her entitlement. She tells her own daughter her husband is too fat or her kids, grandkids, are too fat. In front of them, she called my daughter ghetto because my daughter didn't want to get a dress she wanted her to get. She's rude to restaurant service, and chased down a security guard with my kids in the car. I don't know, maybe there is something else going on. But I can't stand one more minute with this woman. I am working so hard to get out of her house. And this is possibly a reason why she acts this way too. We live in her house, and so she feels she is allowed to be entitled. I dunno. I even thought that maybe she got the hint after the argument. But I don't think she did. She left an entire raw roast in the compost bin. It's a small kitchen compost, and didn't bother to say anything. I cleaned, mopped, and made dinner, cleaned up after myself, and in one whop the kitchen was destroyed when she simply made ramen. I can't leave it. I have a baby, and she needs to have a clean space. I've resorted to staying in my room until she leaves, and knowing that if I clean, it'll be destroyed before anyone can enjoy a clean area. I'm at my wit's end. Going to see mother-in-law for first time in a year, advice needed. So, we had a lovely time celebrating dear husband's cousin, and spending time with dear husband family. One little highlight was meeting dear husband's extended family, mainly one of his aunts who I was never introduced to. Her and I got to talking for a while, really hit it off, and then dear husband came up to ask me a question, and his aunt responds, "Oh my, this is your wife? She's incredible. How did I not know this was your wife? You look 18 years old. You're beautiful. Dear husband really married up. I have always heard amazing things about you, and it's good to know you more than live up to it." All said in front of mother-in-law, who just sat there silently, ha 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 ha. Of course it didn't come without my mother-in-law trying to pull me aside away from dear husband to try and turn us against each other. Her telling me she has never said anything bad about me ever, and that she loves me, and that dear husband is verbally abusive to her, and accused her of being a drug addict, which she is. She had communicated to dear husband a couple weeks ago telling him she was basically dying in the hospital, which she does often, and wasn't true, and then she slipped at the shower by sharing a story that she had ran from the back of a stadium to the front, while at a Usher concert. Conveniently the same day we were harassed with all these dying messages. It all ended with something that I swear was heaven sent. Dear husband's aunt, who I love, pulled me aside, and asked if it would be more comfortable for us if she held Thanksgiving on the Saturday after Thanksgiving so we would be in a neutral space, but could spend time with them. Because last year mother-in-law canceled her Thanksgiving dinner because she is extremely jealous of my family, and my husband's relationship with them. So any mention of us spending any time with them at all sends her into a fit. And when dear husband called to figure out a time so we could hit all three of our dinners that day, it was a disaster. My family, and dear husband's dad's family bend over backwards to try and make things work because they know how difficult she is. Dear husband told me as we were leaving that many family members were coming up to him apologizing that they haven't seen us more often. They all understand how crazy mother-in-law is, and his response to all of them was there became a point where I needed to defend and protect my wife, and she crossed a line. Makes all the drama we deal with her worth it. She wants to tear everything apart, and doesn't realize she is further isolating herself. But all in all, this was a monumental step for me, protecting me, and my marriage. Standing up to someone I am absolutely terrified of. I am thankful for all the great advice I have received. I have a very toxic mother-in-law. She actively is trying to ruin my marriage, but that is a whole other story. We have been no contact since last Thanksgiving when she tried to get our dog put down, and made a scene at Thanksgiving dinner claiming we set her up to get attacked by our 7-month-old puppy. When we were both in the room, have a camera in the living room, and the dog was next to me the whole time. Not to mention my dog has never been mean ever. Anyways, don't get me started on her history with her because I will be able to go on forever. I love my husband's family. They are all wonderful, amazing, supportive people. They used to get together constantly till their grandma died, and now we rarely see them. I got a text from my husband's aunt inviting me to his cousin's baby shower this Sunday. I want to go so badly because I want to support them and see them. My husband also wants to go pop in and say hi. It isn't a co-ed baby shower, because he hasn't seen his family in a year and really misses them. And we both decided that just because we can't have a healthy relationship with her, shouldn't mean we are distant from the rest of his family. I am not a confrontational person at all. My mother-in-law is very much so. My husband is adamant that his mother won't do anything at the baby shower, but people around, celebrating someone, has never stopped her from being rude to me. My husband is very aware of his mom's antics, and stands up for me whenever it calls for it. I have gone through a lot this past year, and really just don't have any capacity to handle drama right now. I wanted to go and celebrate his cousin. If you have any advice or experience on how to handle this interaction, it would be very helpful. Boyfriend's mom seems judgmental and wishy-washy. Help! So my boyfriend has been wild about me recently. He's saying he knows I'm the girl he's gonna marry. He gave me this really special gift he's always had, and has saved for a special girl in his life, etc. My boyfriend and I's families have a bit of a money difference. Even though my dad makes around $83K per year, he's recently filed bankruptcy, and we're struggling just to get by financially. We live in a small one-story house, and it's not really anything fancy or anything. On the other hand, my boyfriend's family seems to have always been stable and flowing through life. They're military. I live in kind of snooty neighborhood, and just overall seem very financially stable. I'm currently in school to become a licensed counselor, and my boyfriend didn't go to school, and ended up getting a job paying $54K per year straight out of high school. He also has a fancy sports car, and I have an older car I had to work for. I'm not saying my boyfriend didn't work for his car. He just has much more money to spend on a car than I do. He's told me before his mom has liked and disliked girlfriends, and once he kicked a girl out of his house because she called his mom a jerk. But to be honest, the ex-girlfriend did seem in the wrong there, and if anyone called my parents a jerk, I'd probably do the same. He doesn't keep in touch with her as much now that he has moved out for a while, but he also protects her and stands up for her a lot. One warning sign I got from this is that he said he's gonna talk to his mom before I meet her in real life in a month and a half. Apparently she can be rude sometimes, and can be judgmental. I went through her Facebook, and she seems a bit stuck up, but I can't judge yet. I'm just more scared than anything. So my question is, how do you make a good first impression? What do you do if she just doesn't like you? What if she says something condescending? I'm dreading meeting her just because of this, and I'm already shy enough. This might be a big hill for me to climb, although I know I should just be myself. She tries to steal my husband and kill my dog. Alright, I am about to lose my goddamn mind. My dear husband and I have been together for 3 years, married for 1 year. I was forewarned by my dear husband that his mom is top-notch crazy. But she is literally blowing my mind with the level of crazy. I feel like I am in the Truman Show, and this is all one big joke. Background on me: I am non-confrontational, an over-pleaser, and have a really hard time when people don't like me. And because I am so neurotic about my relationships, and that I want to please everyone, I hardly ever have issues with anyone in my life. But I have multiple ulcers to prove that niceness isn't always the answer. Where to start? My dear husband is very on and off with his mom. He is her only child. They will be fine, aka him just putting up with her bullcrap, till he reaches a breaking point, and then he stops talking to her. We believe she is a narcissist, definitely a bit delusional, and also heavily abusing Xanax. She has always been overly obsessed with my husband, and so in turn I am a threat. When I met my husband, he was in a really bad place, and getting his life together. He is bipolar, and was not getting help for it. Anytime he tried to get help or it was getting better, she would do something completely destructive to ruin it because she wants him broken and dependent on her. So when I met, they weren't speaking, but at least once a year he feels guilty, and reaches out to her, and tries to fix it. When we were dating, I was constantly put in the middle, protecting him, but also trying to decipher her feelings because he desperately wanted to have her in his life. But she is toxic. They would get in a fight, and she would immediately call me to try and tell me he is crazy and rude, and try to turn me against him. Obviously I never believed her, because I was normally there when they would get in a fight on the phone, and I heard the whole conversation, and it was her screaming at the top of her lungs about nothing at all. She gives things with a shady purpose to hold it over your head forever. Anything she does comes with strings. So when we got engaged, and started planning our wedding, which I won't get super into because she was horrible the whole time, but we made it a point that she was not going to pay for anything for our wedding because we wanted it to be about us, and not her. We also didn't want anything held over our heads for the rest of our lives. So my parents, my husband and I paid for our whole wedding. but my mother-in-law decided she wanted to throw a rehearsal dinner, which we did not ask her for. At first the place we were having the dinner at was willing to give us a huge discount because of how big our party was, but my mother-in-law single-handedly bullied the coordinator to the point where she told her she couldn't work with her anymore, and another coordinator was put on our party, and our dinner became extremely more expensive because of how awful she was. The whole dinner was a I love my son tribute party, and she never spoke of me at all the whole night, but I didn't care because it was her dinner that I never asked for. So cut to our wedding day. She shows up an hour late to the ceremony, so we had to start an hour late. Not one apology. Nothing. And apparently she was going around to all our friends and family crap talking us through the whole reception. A year ago she showed up unannounced to our home to bring us random crap. We had a 7-month-old puppy. She hates dogs, and knows we have one. She came in, and we made sure the dog didn't get near her. Then she left. It was a surprisingly decent visit. She was pleasant. Cut to Thanksgiving. We are all sitting down with all my husband's extended family, and my mother-in-law sits next to me. I am in the middle of a conversation with his uncle, and she interrupts, and says her dog attacked me. I had to go to the ER and I brush it off because it's normal for her to make these crazy claims, and all I say is I am sorry you feel that way because she is not rational at all. So we obviously decide to leave abruptly, and as she hugs my dear husband she whispers your dog did attack me, and your wife doesn't care at all, and my dear husband says back mom we both know that's not true. And we leave. For the next month she progressively got worse, calling almost daily screaming about how my dog is vicious, and she is going to call animal control and the police to get her put down. My husband in one conversation when he finally got a chance to speak over the screaming, he says mom, we have a baby cam in the living room where we were the whole time. I checked it. The dog didn't even get near you. I can send you the footage. She freaks out screaming about how I am a swine and I stole him away, and that my family is perfect, and he can go be with his new family, and she starts claiming my dear husband's aunt took her to the ER. So my husband hangs up, calls his aunt immediately, and she says no she never took her to the ER, and hangs up because no one wants to upset this woman because she is like, light your house on fire, slash your tires crazy. One day she sat outside our house for 5 hours while neither of us were home and called me 102 times, my husband 180 times, and his business partner about 15 times. When I got home I found all the gifts and things we had given her over the past 3 years sitting on our doorstep, along with a dog treat that I am 99% was poisoned. Our building has a door code so I have no idea how she got in. It's so creepy. My husband blocked her on everything, and for the next year she went around to his whole family saying that I am the reason they aren't speaking, and that I am changing him. I am tearing her family apart. She is always the victim. She's never done anything wrong in her life apparently. So up to this week, my husband had unblocked her months ago because he felt bad and guilty, and she will call like once a month, and right when he answers it she is screaming already. She has alienated herself, and is incredibly lonely because of her behavior, because she doesn't only do this to my husband, she does it to everyone. She is mean and vindictive. One time at his cousin's wedding my mother-in-law, her niece and I were talking, and she says to her niece your dad was talking about you the other day, but I really don't think I should tell you. He says he hates you, and you're dead to him. Then she sat there and consoled her crying. She is a serious psychopath. I remember walking away from that, and telling my husband, and both of us were so grossed out, but the other day she called, and my husband decided to answer it with a glimmer of hope that she's given up this whole vendetta. He answers, and the first thing she says is are you alone? Because I would really like to speak to my son for once. Can we meet somewhere other than your house? And my husband says sure, you aren't allowed in my home anyway to protect my wife and my dog. So they meet up, and for 2 hours she cycles through the same sob stories. Your dog attacked me, your wife is a swine, I am all alone, and sick, and probably going to die. She fakes illnesses regularly. Then she decides to throw this curveball. Remember when we met with your wife's family for dinner? They only talked about their other daughter the whole time. Her own family doesn't even like her, which isn't true at all obviously. She just sits at her home, alone in her thoughts, making up random crap to support her crazy narrative. It's honestly insane, and doesn't feel real at all to me that she is a real person. I support whatever my husband needs to feel at peace with his relationship with his mom, but I have made it very clear to him that I don't trust her, and have no plans of having a relationship with her because she actively tries to attack my marriage, and says horrible things about me when I have done nothing but be nice to her. When things were good I was the one making sure we went to all family events, kept her in the loop with our life. Does anyone have any advice at all? I have set all the boundaries I can, but I am losing my mind slowly, haha. What happens when we start having kids? I should also add that my husband stands up for me and our marriage every time she attacks and says horrible things. He's been really great through all of it, and the fact that he sees the crazy and doesn't enable it is the only reason I put up with all of this. My family and parents have been so great, and basically adopted my husband emotionally. Luckily his parents divorced when he was really young, and they both remarried, and my husband's dad and stepmom are also so supportive and great. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.